First thing I'm gonna do is adding a super quick new layout. What I'm going to use for that is this page here. Sorry. This one. I'm gonna use the Bootstrap. Well, I think the link was around here. Okay. Well, everybody used Bootstrap before? Anyone who doesn't? Everybody, right? No, this is pretty basic. So, adding my layout is like copy here. Base it here, everything. Then I'm going to, instead of using a local file, I'm going to use the CDN for loading the Bootstrap CSS file. Like that. And I'm going to use a theme. Not this one. And I'm going to move the GS files at the end of the file. Like this. Bootstrapping. Okay. Right? No questions, right? So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new element for the top menu. I just got there and grab a standard menu. Going to add it here. Template, element, top menu. Okay, something there. I'm not using any helper right until now. Okay. And then I'm going to define a new view for the home action. So I'm going to edit the template, view, sorry, template. This is answers. A new one that is called home. Oh, are we going to add it in questions or answers? I don't care. Answers? Okay. Okay, so the only thing here is this one. We're setting the view, and we are selecting a layout from the view to, instead of using the default layout, to use the Bootstrap layout that we just created, right? Then we are appending a footer content for our footer block, okay? And then we are displaying a table like we want to display with the username, the question text, and the answer, okay? So we can suppose those entities are available in the view, and now we are going to build a backend so those entities are available.
That one was the block, what's that one? That's fine?
We don't have it defined yet, but it will be defined on the template. Let's do it now. Yeah, I just pasted the HTML but didn't define any block. So if we render this, we'll not render anything on the side because we don't have a content block yet. So yeah, I'm going to define here the top menu element. I'm going to replace that. Okay. So we moved the top menu to an element, just copy paste the HTML, and we define a container div class, and we are fetching the content to get the render view and put it right there. And then we are defining another block that's called footer. So you have seen this block and everything else. So this is not needed. Just load it twice. Okay. Right. Then we have the top menu block. Sorry, the top menu element defined. We just copy paste the code that was there into an element, and we have the footer block defined on the main layout. We define a view for the home action, so it is now time to define a home action in the controller. Well, we're setting the answers, and we're not even building a custom finder, but you could follow the examples from yesterday and build a custom finder for that. That could be better to move this logic to the model layer instead of having that in the controller. And we're going to limit to 20 it was, or 5 maybe. I don't care. Doesn't really matter. And we are going to order the answers by the ID, so we get the latest answers the first. We didn't created and modified fields for the answers table, so we are using the ID because it is autonumeric. Would be better to have a created instead, because using the ID for this kind of thing is kind of weird. And we're using contain to let the query retrieve the user, the question, and the question type option related to a given answer. Okay? And that's it. What happens now?
Organizations missing.
Yeah? So we need to contain users, organizations. Okay. So we should get it from, well, it's not even displayed, but let's add it. It was in the slide, but not in my notes. So we are getting the organization. Like that. If we get now to the page, we should get something. No, too many H's. There, and we have answers. Well, isn't layout?
Your extension is wrong from the layout. Call it PHP.
What? Oh yeah, sorry. Man. This is not a 3.0 change. Is that I am silly. Yeah. So we have something there, okay? And now we are going to, well, of course, that's an element, that's the footer we are adding. We're injecting this footer from the view, so in different views we could inject different content very easily.
Talking about the blocks and elements, are you going to do something about cells as well?
Yeah, I hope cells will be covered this afternoon by Jose. He was going to, and if he was not about to cover them, possibly he is now. So you have more content. So yeah, cells are new for 3.0, and it's very interesting to cover them today. So you get a glance on of what you can do for that.
Good to have some examples to differentiate when you should use a block, when you should use an element, when you should use a cell.
Yeah.
Very similar, but slightly different.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in this case, let's keep it simple for today, for the morning, and let's try to get a difference about the element and the block. And in this case, the difference is blocks are more powerful. They will allow you to inject content from all the places you don't know about right now. And blocks will allow you to extend views also. Okay? We are going to see an example later about extending views. And now we want to display, okay, we want to display the organization for a given user if the user belongs to an organization. How should we do that? Or how could we do that? We could do it in different ways, but what's your suggestion for that? Yeah, we have it in the contain right now. I'm just trying to discuss with you how could we do it in 3.0 to display, instead of the username here, add the organization if the user belongs to an organization. This sounds like some viral field or after find in 2.0, right? To add this data and display into the view. How can we do it? How do you think we could do it in 3.0? Yeah, we have a custom find. We have it now. But we are talking about decorating model data to have it easily displayed in the view. And we could take advantage of the new entity class for that. Remember, we have an entity class that deals with row-related logic. So remember, we added a new display field called full name in the user. You remember at the beginning of the previous session? I know it's a long time ago, but try to make an effort. If we use the entity for that, the view gets clean. We only need to display the display field there, and we can tweak that from the model layer. So we can build complex display data in the view very easily. So let's do it. I think it's a good example. So one thing we could do, if we go to the view, this is called full name. Okay, this is already using the entity for that. Let me change this code a little bit. Okay. No ID here. So you remember this method here, get full name? The get full name is faking a new property in the user entity. So we are building this property using the first and the last name. So we could add this very easily here. Instead of returning this, we could do this, and we could do if this organization well, actually, yeah, this is if not empty or if set. I think it's okay with that. So if the user has an organization there, we can append the organization name to the full name. Okay. Nothing. Yeah. This is a pretty common mistake in my code. Well, this is not too fancy because we could use a template for replacing that, but you get the idea, right? So yeah, we changed something. Now we have that, and this will not be some kind of hack we do on the view. This will be there for us to grab this data in any part of our application if we need to have a display name. So it will be the same all over our application. Okay. So that's it. Okay, talking about helpers now. The first helper we're going to talk about is the first core helper we have available is the HTML helper. You're already possibly familiar with them because it's been there for a long time. And the main focus on the HTML helper is to provide correct HTML markup for anything we need to output in our application. So there are a couple of functions there in the HTML helper that maybe are still unknown or hidden. So this is an example to understand how table headers and table cells work. I don't know if you were already familiar with those two guys in the HTML helper. Did you ever use that? Anyone? Never? Well, then this is a cool example for using it. So remember, the HTML helper will allow us to pass an options array, and the options array will work the same as worked before. We have a key value, and it will become an attribute to the actual element that we are generating. We have several functions in the HTML helper. We have an image, we have a link, we have a lot more. You can go there and take a look because it's really useful sometimes because you can shortcut a lot of code using HTML helper for that. And there is one change here, that the URL method is no more here because we have a specific helper that is called the URL helper that you can use for generating URLs, or simply use the router class, whatever you want. Okay. So let's use the HTML helper to add a link in the home page to view every question, and let's refactor our table code to use the HTML helper, table headers, and table cells. Go ahead and do it. I'll give you 1 minute and do it, you. Remember this code we have here in the view. So this is a lot of markup, and somehow it looks ugly, yeah? So that's good. Let's replace that. Couple of minutes, and I'll do it. Well, no, nobody likes tables those days, but they're still useful sometimes. Okay, what I did is this to replace it. Right? So it's a little bit less of code, not too much, but a little bit less. And also, there is no mix in markup and PHP echoes. That is something sometimes difficult to read. So we are using the table cells here and the table headers there to build the headers and the actual cells of the table. And we just need to, and we've added here also a link to the answer. Okay. Well, it's not the answer, is the question. Sorry. Yeah?
If I would need to give a CSS class to some specific style to some cell, how would it be possible?
Yeah. Totally possible. Yeah, you have that here. You can use an array here, like this one. You see? You can pass whatever you need. Instead of passing the actual value, you can pass an array to the element, to the specific element, to specify a class or any other attribute you need. If you have a if you have a lot of cells to display, and you have something to some logic that is capable of extracting specific attributes for this data, you could build a logic very easily for traversing the data array you have or the entity array you have, and building the table cells this way. So, for example, if you have a calendar or something and you need a specific class for a holiday, you can traverse that very quickly, the entity array, and then convert it. Okay? About a form helper. Well, the form helper is the other main helper we are going to use every day. So here's very similar to 2.0. We have a create. In this case, we change in this case, we can pass an entity to the create method in the view. And the entity usually comes from the controller. Remember, the create in 2.0 usually was the model alias we want to use for that form. And now we can use the entity right away and pass the entity from the controller, using new entity in case of an add action, and using patch entity if in case of an edit action. So the form helper logic will detect if the entity is new. If the entity is new, we're going to add, or we are going to create an add action. If the entity is not new, we're going to create an edit action by default. You have similar keys from 2.0, so you can configure form create the same way you did, in case you need to use a specific action for this form, or use a totally new URL for posting, or whatever you need. And you have the typical input functions where you can define the field and the options. One change here, as you already noticed before in the not so easy tampering example we did before, one change there is that the form data, that is, the names of the input fields were changed, because now the data model alias is gone. If you take a look at a form generated with the form helper in 3.0, like this one, Right? You see that? In 2.0, this would be some data model alias, data bracket, model alias, bracket, name of the field, right? This is no more. So this is something you should keep in mind if you are migrating code from 2.0 to 3.0, because possibly in the views, if you are doing some JavaScript or things like that and you're using those IDs, this maybe will change. So I think it's cleaner now, because all that, it was a lot of stuff to add for the views, and if you look at the form now, it's very easy to understand what it does. And all the core helpers we have available. The number helper is available. We have the format and currency methods to format the numbers we want in the views. We have a session helper, the new flash helper we have for doing output of flash messages instead of the session helper. We have a text helper, and inside text helper we have an autolink function. Did you ever use that one? Okay, let's go ahead and do it. Add autolink to the questions, sorry, to the answers comment, and see what happens. Give you 30 seconds for that. I'm doing it right away. I mean, it's worth to take a look at those helpers, because they have a lot of features packed inside, and I think maybe they are not fully used in the community, but there's a lot of logic there to retrieve and to use in our code. Let me change that in. Template, no answers, view. So instead of this, I'm going to say okay. So what this method is going to do is going to detect our text in the comments. If it finds an email or an HTML link, it will create the link for us, the mail to link or the standard link. So if we add something here like this is an email. Whatever. We view that, you see? Well, it did some tricks for us, so we don't need to re-implement those. If we have some markup mixed or some text, and we don't give and we don't want to give the users the ability to enter or add markup to our site, we can trick that using this kind of things. Okay, another example is time helper. Another helper is time helper. Time helper will deal with the formatting of time and also with time zones. And there are lots of useful functions there in time helper. One of them is the format function. I'm going to use it as a quick example as well. Did you know the time ago in words function in the time helper? Did you ever use that? Yeah. It's nice. So I'm going to add this to the, I think it's the answer. Yeah, I think so. No, it's not. Is the question. Oh. So, no, it's the user. Sorry for that. I'm looking at the one who has the created and modified fields, because those are times that we can format very easily. So instead of this, we put this. Oh. The I. Okay. And see a difference. Okay. If you never use that, well, it's cool and it's free, so. Okay, let's talk about using alias for helpers. That is a pretty common practice in 2.0 as well. Did you ever use an alias for your HTML or form helper? Yeah, right. No, it's super. Who didn't? Anyone who did never use an alias here? Okay. Right. Well, what an alias is? Okay. The thing here is, in our views, we are referring to several helpers by their name, like this arrow HTML, for example. This is a way we can use to replace all the references to the HTML helper in our application to a customized HTML helper we want to provide. Imagine that we want to do a full change in how the HTML elements are rendered, or a change in how the form inputs are rendered application-wide. And we don't want to go to all our views and do a search and replace and change this HTML by this my custom HTML helper. We just want to have it working, okay? So using alias is a way for doing this done, or getting this done. We are going to add an example here. It's a stupid example, but you will get an idea of what we are doing with this. We're going to override the form helper select method application-wide. So every time anyone is using a select input for generating a multiple checkbox type of input, we are going to force, so a multiple type of input, we are forcing that configuration to be checkbox. You remember the tags? Well, you know, CakePHP renders the questions and tags with those forms there that you can use the control key to pick more than one, the belongs to many way of picking things. And imagine that we want to change that. I will show you. Imagine that we want to change that by default in our application, and we don't want to use any other kind of helper or things like that. So if we go to questions, add. Okay, let me add a couple of tags. Well, this is the place to tag one, tag two. So here, oh, something went wrong. Click it again. That's reported. Alpha things. So questions. Questions add, for example. Yeah, you know, this kind of input is the standard rendering for CakePHP. We don't like it. Users don't like it. Nobody likes it. So we are going to use checkboxes instead. Instead of showing that, we are going to show checkboxes here on the left. And we are going to do it using an alias, so we don't need to change any code. We just need to alias our form helper to use our a new customized form helper. That's it. The first thing we need to do is define here. We're going to edit the app controller. Right here. And we are going to define an alias for that. Okay, we are saying here, hey, we're using this helper, but instead of using the standard CakePHP class for this helper, use this new class. But I want to keep the same name. Okay? So we need to create a new for multiple checkbox class down here. Right? And let's add some content for it. Okay. Yeah. So what we're doing here, well, we're just, well, initially it was called form helper as well. I call it the same way, but to don't be so misleading, I changed his name, so the S cake for helper is not needed here. Right? Okay, so the only change here is the select function. We are just detecting if the select is type multiple, if it's set, and then we are forcing to have the checkbox attribute. So we are leaving the rest of inputs as they are, and we are ensuring that all the multiple inputs will be type select. sorry, will be type checkbox. And then we are just returning the parent. So we render the rest of the elements, or render the rest of the element the same way. Then, if we go back to our application, not this one, and again, ooh.
I think you missed the .php of the file.
Oh, right. I'm missing a lot of things today. Yeah, there's it. Man. .php. No. Yeah, I know what happens, but this is there, but it's not in the other place. So we need to add something here. VI controller, app controller, and possibly use it for multiple checkbox. This one. View helper. For multiple. No. So it's not in the right place. Multiple checkbox helper. Oh. Is there?
Can you see the form class that you created?
Yeah.
Yeah, open it.
Oh. I didn't move it correctly, right? Helper. I missed the helper at the end, right? I'm missing that. No. Okay. Right? So we didn't change anything in our code, in our views. The helper is called the same, this form, but the behavior of this helper changed and is overridden in our application. This is something you will find in 2.0 in all those Twitter Bootstrap integration plugins that they are out there. So you don't need to change anything, just the way the inputs and other elements are rendered in the view are changed based on the alias helper we are using. This is something very flexible. If you need to change that in the future, you just need to go there, change the way they are rendered, and all the application gets updated. Okay? Any questions related? No? So, unit testing. Before unit testing, if you don't matter, we could have a very small break, 5 minutes or so, because I think you possibly will want to go to the toilet or things like that. So 5 minutes break and have a drink or go to the toilet. I will do.